Hi guys and welcome to my channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Dr. Nigel and I'm a junior doctor from India. For the past couple of months, I have been hosting mocks and teaching sessions online, so that's through my Telegram group. And I've also been making some YouTube videos to help guide you guys on PLAB and moving to the UK for work as a doctor as well. Um, this video is about going through PLAB, especially the PLAB 2 examination, without going to an academy. So the academy has pretty much become a staple of the PLAB 2 exam these days. So there are many academies available to prepare for the PLAB examination, and all of them cost a minimum of a few £100, like 500, £600 at least, for going to an academy. And I've made this video for those of you who are either not planning to go to an academy or who don't want to but are trying to figure out how to prepare further for the exam as well and be able to pass it without attending an academy. I've done a call with one of our doctors who has attended mocks and everything with me. Her name's Dr. Nalini. And in this call, she and I discuss how she passed the exam without having ever attended an academy at all. I think this video will be quite useful for those of you guys who want to start preparing from the very beginning, because you won't have any academy access or anything from the very start. And for those of you who are not planning to go to an academy at all, I'm sure you'll find it very enlightening how she started her preparation, what resources she used to prepare for the exam as well. And I think it worked out pretty well for her because she ended up passing the exam, but she did do a couple of months of preparation as well. So why don't we just dive right into the video, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Today we have Dr. Nalini over here with us. Before we start this video, I'm just going to quickly introduce myself and I'll let her introduce herself as well. So my name is Dr. Nigel. I'm a junior doctor from India. I finished my PLAB 2 in Jan of 2021. Since then, I've been working on my GMC registration, job applications and everything. I've also been conducting mocks and teaching sessions online for people who are giving PLAB 2. I'll be moving to the UK very soon to start work in emergency medicine also. So if you guys have any questions or anything about any of these phases of preparation, then feel free to ask us in the comments on the Telegram group or anything, and we'll be sure to get back to you. Right. So, Dr. Nalini, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I am Nalini Dasigan. I'm actually from Trinidad and Tobago, which is a little island in the Caribbean. I graduated in 2015 from medical school back in Trinidad as well. And I have been on this PLAB journey since 2020. I sat PLAB 1 in March of 2020, and then, COVID hit. So I wasn't able to finish PLAB 2 until July of 2021. And yeah, so I'm currently in the UK now, organizing GMC registration, etc. Looking for clinical attachments and stuff while I'm here. But I'm here to basically give you all a little advice on how to get through this exam without an academy.
All right, yeah. So that's basically the point of this whole video, that Nalini over here, she prepared for PLAB 2. She did a couple of months of prep and she passed the exam without going to an academy. So we'll be talking about her steps of preparation and everything, and what her advice would be to you guys about, if you want to prepare and if you want to give PLAB 2 without having to go through an academy, right? So first things first, let's just brush across, what your PLAB 2 experience was like overall, going from passing PLAB 1 up to the point where you actually passed the exam, just an overall idea of what your experience was like.
So it was very long, very challenging, especially with COVID hitting. So PLAB 1 was okay. Normal prep for PLAB 1, but then when you mentally set yourself up for PLAB 2, because I was going to do this like 3 months later and could not because everything got cancelled. So all my prep was kind of put on hold. I didn't really do anything for a year until they released dates at the beginning of 2021.
Okay.
And so I got my date in well, on July 2021. So between January and July, the prep was very slow. Maybe up until March. And then I started to pick up the pace a bit. Right. And in April I actually got COVID. So I was working before. So between work and having to study, it was a little hard to balance for PLAB. But then when I got COVID and I was in isolation, I had no choice but to, do something with my time. So that is when I started to actually put in a lot of work in terms of resources, finding resources, etc.
Okay.
for
The
for the
exam.
exam. Yeah,
Okay.
and then immediately after COVID, well, I was out of isolation. I basically decided to come straight to the UK,
Mm-hmm.
mostly because back home, we were going up on cases, and I knew that we were going to go up on the red list, etc. So I just decided
Right.
to
Right.
leave and come up here and just wait it out. Yeah, in that time, because it was April till July, I had nothing but lab to prep to do. so
Okay.
so
Right.
I had time, but I mean at the same time it wasn't all just lab.
That's how it was. Okay, I see. Yeah, your journey sort of mirrors mine in a way, in that I was supposed to give my PLAB 2 in March of 2020, and
Yeah.
just about 10 days before the exam itself, I mean, I was already in the UK and everything, and I was pretty much done with my preparation. And about 10 days before the exam, it got cancelled because that's when the first
Oh
wave of
no.
COVID hit and everything. So then that got delayed by almost a year. So like I said, I finally got to give my PLAB 2 exam in Jan 2021. So yeah,
hmm
a good 10 months later. Yeah, so in the meantime, yeah, you do have to figure out things to do and how to spend that time in between, and then when to start preparing for PLAB 2 and everything also. So you had a good
Yeah.
three or 4 months. That's a very,
Yeah.
very decent amount of time to prepare. Let's go through your preparation process then. From passing PLAB 1, I mean, not
Yeah.
including the extra time and everything, it's like when you started preparing for PLAB 2, what were the steps you took to prepare for PLAB 2?
So basically I did a lot of research into I was going to do an academy at the beginning because that was just the norm. That was
Yes.
just what everybody did, and the pathway. It seemed as though you needed to get in, you need to do an academy, you needed to do all of these things, do mocks, etc., and then
Right.
do go to the exam, right? But like with COVID, I honestly didn't think it was necessary to do an academy after that because most of them were just online
Yeah.
academies or online classes. So I thought, well, why am I going to put out all this money and time to subject myself to things that I can do for myself online?
Right.
And it would not have been like as spoon fed, I
Okay.
suppose. And I would not be guided accordingly, like you need to do this and that. You need to go out and look for the work, right? You need to go
Right.
find the
Right.
resources. You need to put the work in. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it yeah, I had the time, so why not go and look for whatever I needed to get done, which is
Okay.
what I did. So from March, April, yeah, from Marchish, I started going out and looking for um things that I would need to use or like. So you need to understand who you are and how you learn as a person as well.
Right.
So I am more like visual, like a visual learner, or I prefer to hear things from somebody rather than read it.
Right.
So I knew like videos and audiobooks and just physical exams and stuff would help
Right.
me to pick up things a bit faster. So those are the things I went looking for. But definitely you find out, you know, who you are and how you learn best, and then you find resources to accompany that style of learning.
So, well, you once you found these resources, the scripts, right? I'm assuming you mean like you found some scripts and everything online and all also. So,
Right.
how would you practice using the scripts, given that you didn't go to an academy and you weren't practicing with anyone else?
So most of the times I would just sit in front of a mirror
Okay.
and I would just kind of just go through because I didn't memorize scripts. I think that a consultation between a patient and a doctor is just free flowing, and if you are you set a comfortable environment and the information is flowing, and you have ideas of what you want to ask. um it shouldn't be very scripted at all. It shouldn't be rehearsed. So what I would do is like just sit in front of a mirror and ask general questions. And then I graduated in 2015. So I've had years of experience
Right.
as a clinician. It's just like every other day at work. You go, you be friendly with people, you open up your communication a bit, and you just let people talk. You let people say what they need to say, and then you go accordingly and you ask
Okay.
appropriate questions. What I did was just sat in front of a mirror,
Yeah.
and I just kind of went through things that, well, like topic wise, I'd ask particular questions, but I'd also look at myself and see what my facial expressions were when I was asking, like when I was asking questions, just body language in general, because those things are things that you wouldn't be able to see for yourself
Yes.
unless you're doing it like that, or unless somebody points it out to you.
Okay.
So, because I didn't have the practice with people, I think that helped quite a lot.
I see. Okay, so you would take the scripts, you would go through them, make sure that you absorb the information in them, but you made sure not to just be scripted, as it were, right? So
Regurgitate, yeah,
yeah, regurgitate all of that information out. Like you would try and practice as though you were speaking to a real patient in the mirror, right?
as
You
if
would
yeah.
watch your body language and your tone of voice and everything, and try and see whether that was the most conducive to keeping
Mm-hmm.
a friendly doctor-patient interaction, right?
Comfortable environment. The
Okay.
old thing too, because back like what's a common thing for us back home is that we speak a lot with our hands.
Yes.
So I knew that that was something that I needed to work on too.
Okay.
So like, and I picked up on that when I sat in front of the mirror, and I was like, why is my hand doing all of these things, right? So then I started to actively tell
And now
myself,
you're
okay,
making me
yeah.
feel conscious because every time I speak, I'm always talking with my hands.
It's just that it becomes distracting in an exam. Like I
Yeah.
think I think if you're sitting very comfortably with somebody, then sure, that's fine. But in an exam setting, like you don't want this to be distracting from your interpersonal skills.
Okay, I see.
So
I see.
that is something that I noted for myself. So I would sit and be like, yes, this is what we're doing. Hands on your lap or hands somewhere where you
Okay.
consciously like do not move your hands.
I
And
think
you
that's
just put
interesting.
more
I think
focus.
that's interesting because to me, I would say, gesturing with your hands and everything, it does help with speech. But then, yeah, if you do too much and everything, it does distract from your
Yeah,
performance also. So, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, keeping your hands on your lap is good. If you need to move your hands once or twice to explain things, that's also good. But just don't
that's
keep
fine. Yeah.
moving around and doing it.
Don't
That's good.
overdo it. Yeah, because it
That's a
becomes
good point.
distracting. Yeah.
That's a good point. I'll keep that in mind. Okay. So that's how you would prepare. Okay, great. Now, some specific stations, I mean, where you would need to practice maybe with mannequins or with sim man. So that's everybody's main concern, really, right? And even
Right.
me, to be honest, before going to an academy, like the main thing I think everybody is really concerned about is how we're going to practice examination stations and sim man stations when we have never seen these mannequins, never practiced on mannequins before. Even though most of us have practiced on patients before, or at least examined some patients in
Right.
internship or work, it's a whole different thing doing the whole procedure on a mannequin or a sim man.
Yeah.
So how did you prepare for those stations?
So because of that, and I knowing that I did not go to an academy, and knowing like I know back when I was in med school, we did practice a lot on mannequins,
Okay.
and so the mannequin stations weren't like it wasn't completely new to me because I had an idea as to what was going on, but I also know that I still needed to practice it in any event. So what I did, I would take stuffed toys or pillows, and I just put them down like on the couch or on the table or whatever, and I would just go through whatever I had to go through, whatever station I was doing at that point, on a pillow or on the stuffed toy. And sometimes, well, my brother's here as well, so I'd probably use him for like CVS and RESP exams and
Right.
all these other exams that I would need the person to actually to do things. I would do those exams with him, but what I did predominantly was read. This was my go-to book. I know
McLeod's.
the McLeod's, right? So like honestly, it is amazing. I used this while I was in med school and it has never failed me and it still did not fail me. So it's an amazing book.
Okay.
Just to get an idea of exams. Um, it would give you essentially what you need to do for the exam. But sometimes too, if you go on YouTube and you just look up, type in knee examination or whatever, you get the idea of the order it's supposed to go and how it's supposed to flow. So whilst
Right.
you might have the theory in your mind, watching the video kind of solidifies that theory.
Yes.
So and then you go and you practice on anything down to cervical smears. I use 2 spoons and a glass on the
Okay.
table. And I would go through and I'd use the spoons as my speculum and I'd use the glass as the mannequin. And I would go through just exams like that because I had to make do
Yeah.
with the situation. So I mean, you can improvise, and it really doesn't matter as long as you have your technique down. It doesn't matter. You absolutely don't need to have an actual mannequin. You
Okay.
just
Perfect.
improvise, and you get your skills down.
Perfect. Yeah. So that's very informative, and the examples you used, and I would say your approach is extremely, it's minimalistic, right? You did not
Yeah,
have all of these resources that would normally be there if somebody went to an academy and everything, but then you used your creativity and you just figured out how I can go about doing it without all of these things. So
yeah,
using the
yeah.
pillows as practice, and you asked your brother who was there for some certain examination stations when you needed to,
Right.
give instructions and everything to the patient, right? Using the spoons as a speculum and all, that's pretty amazing. Yeah. Um, okay, and just to add on to that, using McLeod's and
Mm,
everything. So you mentioned you were watching YouTube videos and everything. So
right.
I would personally also say that you guys can check out Geeky Medics. So if there's any, I'm pretty sure they have a ton of free videos anyway. So they
I have
have
a
a
few.
lot they have a lot of examination stations and everything on Geeky Medics, and I would highly recommend everybody, if you're a bit concerned about examination stations, what the procedure is and everything, just check them out, and I think it'll be really helpful for examination stations.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm,
I think Medics was another one as well that had a lot of good videos.
and what is the other one?
Medics.
iMedics, yes,
Yeah.
them as well. Yeah, they're both. There may be some slight variations in the way they examine, but overall, it's all done really, really well and professionally.
It's
So
yeah.
both of them are really good to refer to. I'll be putting the links down in the description as well in the video, so you guys can check
Mhm.
those out. Okay, so that's how you went about doing the examination stations. Now, what about SimMan?
Yeah. So Saman is pretty straightforward station generally. If you look at the videos, because again I go back to YouTube videos, right? There are loads and loads of Simran videos for PLAB 2 that were posted, and it's all free. And if you go through it, you actually spend the time when you go through them, you'll realize it's almost the same approach, regardless of the video
Absolutely.
that you look at. So if you just internalize that and you just make notes on like watching the videos, you realize it's the same notes that you're making all the time. It's always airway, breathing, circulation, and you go down that road, right? So ultimately you realize, okay, you're going to go through this, and I practice on my stuff twice this way. I use like little sheets and pillowcases and stuff as bandages if necessary. I improvised, and aside from videos, like there were days that life gets in the way and you need to go do errands and whatnot. There were audiobooks that I found as well that were specific to Simran stations. So I would just pop those like on my like and listen, pop those on and listen while running errands. And so you still get your study time in, while doing life things. So
Absolutely.
yeah, definitely practice as much as you could. And I think Simran stations or stations generally, you probably want to get somebody to just look at you, because whilst you might be doing things a certain way, there are things that you're just not going to realize that you're doing wrong, or your technique might be off. So probably try to get those stations practice with with somebody, even if it's online, just to have someone look at you do it. So you'd be like, you're doing this wrong, or you could probably do this better, or do this a different way. You know, but some in particular for some one stations, I did videos, I did practice with my stuffed toys, and I had two friends who recently did PLAB as well. I did Simran stations with them. Now, Simran for me was not challenging at all really, because I am from an emergency medicine background. So this was my bread and butter, essentially. So most of the Simran stations were things that I were accustomed to. So yeah, it wasn't very challenging for me.
Understood. Okay, so Simman, so you found it pretty easy because you anyway have that emergency medicine background and everything.
Yeah.
Me in particular, I did not, I didn't work in emergency medicine or anything for too long. I just did it during internship. So what you said was absolutely right. It's literally just the ABCD approach for every single one of those stations, because they're all going to be emergency stations. Once you have the ABCD approach down, I think it's the Simman station is pretty much a breeze. I think it's one of the easiest ones to pass, but you do have to
Yeah.
keep practicing those stations. So what I would recommend for anybody watching, you don't need to memorize every single one of those stations or anything. Um, but what you can do is try and get a group of people, so at least two other people. So one person can be the doctor, one person can be the simman, and one person can be the monitor, right? Where they can
Hmm.
change the vitals and everything. And practice at least one or two simman stations every day after you're done with the rest of your usual stations. If you do maybe one or two examination stations and one or two simman stations every single day, even just one simman station every day, from the start until the day you reach your PLAB 2 exam, you will be extremely well prepared for every single examination and every single simman station. It'll just come up,
Hmm.
it'll just flow very easily. It'll be on the tip of your tongue, every single thing you need to say. So that's what I would recommend. It just comes with a lot of
I
practice,
think I
and
think
it's
too.
really really stepwise. A B C D E. If you just follow that
Mm,
approach, and that's all you need.
I mean, for me, like there were days too that I just didn't want to do anything. Like you're just so saturated. And those were the days that I picked to do exams, so something
Right,
more practical.
right, right.
So like, okay, I don't want to look at any more videos. I don't want to hear anything. I
Yeah.
just wanted to, but at the same time, you want to get some work in. I would just go and do exams and just try to, release some of that pent up energy,
Perfect days to do
frustrations,
perfect days to do the
to do
examination
practical
stations
things.
and simman stations. Exactly, those are the perfect
Yeah,
days. Yeah,
yeah,
I would do the same thing as well. Yeah.
yeah,
If I was getting tired out and everything, you just want to switch to something. You just be doing something with your hands, and it's a whole different
yeah,
approach.
yeah.
So yeah,
And you still get the work in, and
yeah.
without the frustration of it. Yeah,
Exactly.
definitely. You need to know how you are as a person
Right,
and pace yourself accordingly. Yeah.
right, right. So like the advice I just gave for the examinations and simman stations, that's pretty much what I did for the exam. And the examination stations, both of mine were combined stations, so there was a lot of stuff to unpack in each and every one of those. And my simman station, even that one went well. So I mean, I passed all three of those. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's quite a simple approach, honestly. Just do a couple of stations every day, or do a couple of stations if you're feeling tired out, or if you're taking a day off, you could just do one or two exam stations, one or two simman stations, and you can spend the rest of the day off.
And then call it a day. Yeah.
Exactly. Um, so what about you did mocks with me, and you said you've done mocks with
Yes.
some other people as well. Um,
Right.
just tell me a little bit about how, whether those mocks really helped you with the exam preparation, or your confidence, or your feedback, and stuff like that. Did the mocks help?
Mm.
Are they strictly necessary for people who are not going to the academy, or what's your opinion?
Well, honestly, I think it was very important to go to mocks, because without an academy, you really don't have any ideas to what to expect from the exam, and you can. It took me a while. It took me a while to understand the approach, and people kept talking about, well, the approach was important and this and that, but it took me so long to get to understand what it is they were talking about. And it wasn't until I did mocks that I understood what exactly they meant, right? So like so back in April when I had COVID, again, I was in my house, I had nothing to do. I thought, well, okay, I might as well, try to find myself into some mocks and see what it is was like what it really was about. And so I found this group on Facebook, and they were doing online mocks. Um, so I went as an observer for a month. So for most of April into June, I was just there as an observer. And I now, like, I just started actually putting in the work for PLAB then. So I just made a lot of notes during that time as an
Right.
observer, because it was a lot of content too that I didn't know.
Okay.
So we did. So what I did, I just sat down and the mocks would go on for about maybe 2 to 3 hours. And it
Mm-hmm.
would just be various persons, just going through scenarios or whatever the stem was. And I would just be writing, writing, writing until I realized I was writing almost the same thing over and over every day.
Right.
Um, so then that is when I understood, oh, this is the approach they're talking about.
Right.
So, yes, I think for somebody who's not going to an academy, I think it's important to get, you don't have to do all of these mocks, but just to do a few, just to get an idea as to what to expect from it and to know how you are guiding yourself through these stations. So definitely, even if you're not going to be an active participant in a mock, even though I highly recommend that you do, um, at least observe and see what is expected to happen, so you don't go in and you're ambushed in the exam
True.
at that point in time. So definitely, as maybe earlier on, like at least like a 3 months before exam, try to get some observer slots in various mocks in, so you have the time, even if you don't want to go and do active mocks, you have the time to prep by yourself for the exam.
Okay, yeah. So I see what you're saying, and I would agree with you when you're talking about the approach and everything, right? I always tell everybody
Yeah.
that in my free mocks or in the one-on-one mocks, whatever it is, the approach is going to be almost the same for every single station. It's just that everybody has different things to work on, really, and it's mainly going to be the same sort of thing, right? Like in the three domains: data gathering, interpersonal skills, and management, right? So some people are going to be really, really good at the IPS. So then they have to start working on the other things which they may be weaker on. Some people have a lot of work to do on time management. That's the main issue, really. The time management problem is like the main thing. So according to me, there's this three stages of PLAB preparation as well. So the first one is where you don't know anything. You find it difficult. You're struggling to find questions to ask the patient. You don't know what is relevant in the scenario. You don't know the differentials. You're not sure about the management. The second phase is once you've gone through all the scripts, you have an idea of what can come up in the station. You're familiar with the theory stuff. That's when the time management becomes an issue, because then you start wasting a lot of time in history. There's not enough time in the management. And that's just
Mhm.
typical for every single person who does PLAB 2. And finally, hopefully, by the time the exam comes, you'll be in part 3, where you have all the information and you're able to cut down the history taking so that you have enough time for the management as well. And once you get to that phase 3 and then you go for the exam, hopefully you're able to manage your time perfectly over there. You're able to ask all the relevant questions. You don't make any gross mistakes, and that's it. That's mostly what you need to just pass the exam, right? And the approach is just keeping
It
all
becomes
these
a
things
bit
in mind,
redundant.
and yeah, and just
Yeah.
practicing, and then it just becomes second nature to you. You don't have to think about it anymore.
I mean, I would still encourage people to do active mocks, mostly because, and I learned this for myself, is after maybe 4 to 6 weeks of observing, I did my first active mock then, just to gauge where I was, and how much work I needed to put in. And I realized, like, you can listen to people
Right,
do their stations, and in your mind you're telling yourself, I can do this, I can do that, or I can
right,
do this
right.
better, and whatever. But then when you are placed on the hot seat, it's like everything just goes out.
Completely different.
And
Exactly.
so I would highly recommend that you do active mocks with people. And again, it's up to you, but until you are put in the position, then you wouldn't realize the pressure that's there, and you need to function under that pressure. Like if like you need to function.
Yeah. So
So yeah,
that's what I felt about. That's actually why I started doing my mocks, right? So uh, I actually I myself did not do any one-on-one mocks or anything with anybody before, uh, but I did do the academy mocks. So what I
right.
felt over there was that uh, it was close to the exam in the way that there were 12 scenarios. So you had to do all of them at a go, and you really build up your stamina and you figure out, okay, this is sort of what it's going to take to, go through the exam, and this is how much energy it's going to take and everything. So basically, you get in that mindset of
Yeah.
the exam, right? But feedback wise, I found them really, really lacking. So in my mocks, and I know other people who are doing their own, one-on-one mocks and group mocks and stuff. So they focus mainly on the feedback. So that's the aspect that we really focus on in our mocks also. And just so everybody here, watching this knows, I have free mocks every Sunday also. So you guys can join those mocks, you can observe, and you can participate if you get a slot also, and it's all free, right? And what you said about, watching being totally different from actually, doing the scenarios yourself, because the very first time I actually participated in a scenario, it was like unbelievable. Like I would watch these things and I'd say, okay, yeah, I know these points. Oh, they this person missed that point and they missed that point and they
Yeah.
did bring up this point. That's good. And then when I went up and did it, I'm like, what am I supposed to say next? What is the next question? I completely blanked, right? So the very first time I actually did one of those scenarios, it was a absolute disaster.
A
And
complete, yeah.
that's just going to happen to everybody. The first time you do a scenario, it's going to be terrible, but then after that you start building your confidence, you realize where you're going wrong. Having that own insight into your own performance is really, really helpful. So you figure out where you're going wrong, what your strong points are, what your weak points are, and start building on those strong points and start trying to fix those weak points as well.
Yeah. So I think you don't want that first time to be in the exam,
Right,
because
exactly.
you don't want that first time to be in the exam. Now, um that can also be gotten with if you practice in groups
Mm-hmm.
and you are placed in that hot seat, and you get that sort of criticism from a group of people. You can get that there, but then I didn't have that sort of group to practice with. It was, mostly by myself.
Right,
So I kind of, went towards doing the mocks and doing more mocks, because that was the only way I was getting feedback
right,
at that point in time. And yes, I had people who did that before, but they were, engrossed in their own lives, and that's only fair. So I just made do with the situation that I was in. And so I went ahead and I did as much mocks as possible, because that was the only way that I was getting feedback at that point in time. So definitely do the I would highly recommend doing active mocks, because you get to learn things about yourself that you didn't know, or things that you just would not pick up on from other people and their perspective.
right,
And I think that's very important, especially for exam, because you have no idea who's marking you, and what nobody knows the criteria that they are marking on,
exactly.
honestly.
Yeah,
So you want to get as much feedback as possible from various people,
yes,
just to make sure that whatever path that you choose on the day of the exam, that you're still meeting a certain criteria to pass the
right,
exam, to
right,
pass that station.
right.
So practice with as much people as possible. um and that's the last bit I have to say about that particular topic.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's good advice. And okay, so let's wrap things up now. Um,
Yeah.
the last thing I wanted to ask is your general advice now. So, what advice would you be giving people in brief about just what advice would you give people who are going to give PLAB to without the academy?
First and foremost, it is possible. It is very possible to get through the exam without an academy. It takes a lot of hard work, it takes a lot of dedication, it takes a lot of practice. and you need to be a little innovative with your prep. Um, you need to make do with things that you have just around the house, and make the most of the situation that you are placed in. Aside from that, do not be discouraged by people saying that you need to go to an academy to do this, or you need to get practice done. You don't. You really don't, right? Um, it is very possible to do it. Do not succumb to peer pressure. If you feel like, don't go out of your hands reach at that point in time, because you feel like you need to get this done to
Right.
pass the exam, right? But most importantly, um, stay positive and practice, 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 practice. I can probably go on for the next hour just saying the word practice. It is absolutely important that you practice, and also do not be scripted. Like
Right.
the scripts are there, but they will know it like they will know when you go into the exam and you just start up on a script, like they will know. So you just want to go, you want to be as natural as possible, just be you on the day, right? And nobody can fault you for being you. And once you're a safe doctor, everything should be okay once
Yep.
you're safe.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah. So that's my advice, just don't give up at all and stay positive.
Right. And yeah, so you guys, so Nalini didn't have anybody to practice with other than her brother. But for those of you who do know people who are giving PLAB 2 or who have already given and you're able to practice with them, I would highly recommend that. Especially people who have already given the exam, because they'll have a lot of insight into how the exam actually is, what the situation is in the exam, how the simulators are, things like that. So if you're able to find people to practice with who have already given PLAB to, any of your friends or colleagues, whoever it is, I would highly recommend practicing with them. If not, then
Mhm.
just practicing with your colleagues or whoever it is that you know are going to give the exam, sometime in the future, because they may not have the same feedback or insight as people who have given the exam, but they will still be able to tell you things about your performance that you're not able to see in yourself. So I would say that's also extremely useful. If you are not able to practice with others, then Nalini's approach, it worked really well for her. So you guys can go ahead and try that out, and tweak it based on your needs or how you decide to prepare and everything also. Yeah, so that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Also, you can find like family members to practice. It doesn't like it don't have to be medical. Like people in healthcare, it could just be anybody.
Right.
And what they're going to do, they're not going to give you, as you rightly said, they're not going to have the insight for the scripts,
Right.
or for the exam in that matter. But what they will do is tell you, okay, I felt comfortable talking to you, or I will open up to you.
True.
They will actually be the ideal patient in that setting. So you just kind of probably guide them as to, okay, this is what's going to come up, this is what you need to say, right? But or you could just pick topics on things that they commonly affected with. So I've had friends and family who just had headaches, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to ask you about headaches. You tell me your experience, like common things. And I think they give you a lot of insight as on your interpersonal skills, and they can tell you how to improve, and speed and all of that. So people who don't speak English like as a first language, it helps in
Right.
that regard, like to get somebody outside of it, aside from the content of it, just the way that and the manner that you speak to people and your
Right.
speed,
Your approach,
etc.
your IPS, and
um
everything.
yeah, it helps to just have somebody who's not in the PLAB 2 zone to help with that aspect.
And I would also say another thing you guys can do, if you're wondering how you're performing and you don't have anyone to practice with, you can obviously record yourself doing scenarios and everything, right? Whether it's
Definitely.
with someone or whether it's in front of the mirror, whatever it is. I mean, record the whole thing, see how you're performing, what your body language is like, your speech, your tone, everything. That will really help with time management also. So you guys can record it, review your performance, and then make changes based on that also. That's my
As what
advice on
I
that. Yeah, time. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I had a lot of issues with time management. Even up to the day before exam, I thought like I was just going to run out of time. Management wise, I just kind of gave the outline of this is what I'm going to touch on. And then I'd come back and be like, okay, so we're going to start on this first, or which one would you like me to start on first? And so at least the examiner knows that I'm going to hit all of these things at some point. Or
Exactly.
I think there were a few stations for my exam when I thought, okay, I know for a fact that I'm not going to finish this management, but here what? I'm going to organize with you for a follow-up and we can discuss so and so and so on this follow-up. And so at least, and I passed those stations, so it has to work.
Was this from my feedback, or did you like?
It was from your feedback, yeah. So it's like, yeah, you need to. I mean, honestly, I thought like obviously, in retrospect, there are things that you can do better on, and I think I could have worked on my time management, obviously, but for a lot of stations in the exam, I did just try to wrap it up as quickly as possible, and I ended up with like 10 or 15 seconds just left there in just silent awkwardness. What am I supposed to do? Like, what am I supposed to do now?
If you finish most of the important stuff and everything, and you finish a couple of seconds early, there's no problem. I myself, in 2 stations, I finished about 1 or 2 minutes early, and that entire time remaining, I was just thinking, oh god, I could have asked this, I could have asked that, and it was so awkward because you just can't speak after that. But I ended up passing those stations as well. Some of the stations where I ran out of time, there were a few other points that I wanted to touch up on, but I ran out of time there. I ended up passing those as well. So as long as you guys manage the time effectively enough that you bring up all the important points in the history, your IPS is good enough, and you bring up the main management points, make sure the patient is safe, you will be able to pass. And what you said about the management outline, that is pretty much standard advice I give to every single person who does mocks with me. If you're running out of time, especially, break down the management into little bits, right, into smaller parts, and give an outline of the management that you want to give to the patient, and then ask them which part of that they want to hear about first. So by doing that, the examiner knows that this is the entire management outline, these are all the points this doctor wants to talk about. And if you run out of time, it's okay, because they already know that, okay, they are going to talk about this, they just ran out of time. So that's one way you can really help yourself within the time management aspect. And also make sure to bring up red flags, safety netting, and follow up and leaflets and everything, because it just takes 15 to 20 seconds to bring those up, but they're an incredibly important aspect of any consultation, because it's just safeguarding the patient. You're making sure everything is safe, whether if any red flag signs do arise, that they're going to come back to us or dial 999 or whatever it is, right? So there are certain points, obviously we're not going to go into detail over here because we just leave that for the mocks and everything, but yeah, just so people know, time management is a huge factor, and just practicing or doing mocks and everything, that really helps with that, right? Anything else you'd like to add?
I think we've covered most of it. I think one resource I think I did not mention is Aman Aurora, amazing for communication and IPS, and I used his audiobook like a Bible for that 3 months. I just every day it's 2 hours long, and I would just find 2 hours at some point in the day, even if it's just going for a walk, just to listen to that, and it just becomes ingrained in memory. Like, okay, this is what's going to happen, this is how I need to approach this particular patient, and honestly, I thought that really helped with IPS.
I agree with you.
And I think most of his videos too are online, on YouTube.
To his videos on YouTube as well. Yeah, and I recommend that other people listen to Aman Arora's videos on YouTube too. And if you want, you can just listen to his audiobook as well, which is really useful. Gives you a lot of insight into how you should be bringing up certain topics and breaking bad news, how to deal with angry patients, etc. etc. So yeah, he's really good, very helpful with IPS. Okay, fair.
So it's not a hard exam. It really is not a very difficult exam. If you put in work, you will reap all the rewards for it. But at the same time, you need to put in work.
Exactly. Yeah. Just practice, and you guys will get through it. All right. So let's wrap up this session. Thank you very much, Nalini, for all your help and all your advice. I'm sure it'll be really helpful for everybody. And not just people who aren't going through the academies, but everybody in general who wants to know how to start preparing and everything from day one. You may not have any people to practice with or anything, so people who are starting from day one will be able to use your advice as well to start preparing. So yeah, thank you very much.
No
Great.
problem. It was my pleasure.
Alright guys, that's the end of the video. I hope you guys found the video useful, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe to this channel to keep up with future updates. As you guys know, I have a Telegram group, so I've left the group link in the description as well if you guys want to join and participate in any of the mocks, or if you need any help overall with the PLAB 2 examinations, or even PLAB 1 or the visa process, GMC registration, whatever it is. I'm sure we'd all be happy to help you in the group as well. If you guys have any topics you'd like me to discuss in future videos, then leave a comment below and let me know about anything you'd want to know about the whole PLAB process. Apart from that, I hope this video was very useful for those of you who want to go through the whole PLAB 2 process without attending an academy at all, because it is possible. I have met quite a few people at this point who have not gone to the academy and have passed the PLAB 2 examination with quite good marks as well. So if any of you are planning to do that, please let me know in the comments. Let me know what your plan is as well. And if any of you have passed PLAB 2 without the academy as well, then please let me know in the comments and let me know what you guys did specifically to prepare for the exam as well. That'll be really useful for everybody, I'm sure. Apart from that, good luck to all of you with your preparations and all the best for your exams. I'll see you guys soon. Bye bye.